Just a few announcements here as we gear up for final critique. So you guys, today is Monday. You have today, tomorrow, and Wednesday as your last 3 work days. And then Thursday starts our final critiques. And that's going to last probably 3 days. That's what I scheduled it for. Just because of how much time things take and what we need to accomplish during that critique time. Okay? So keep in mind, your final critique that we start on Wednesday is basically in place of a final exam. It is your final exam. So think about what a final exam is intended to do. It's supposed to measure and document how you have learned all throughout the semester and prove your growth, right? So that is our goal for our final critique and for this final project, is to be able to show your skills, show what you've learned, talk about your growth as an artist and as someone who now has knowledge of all these art concepts, okay? So what we are expecting for final critiques, largely it is the same as what we have been doing for critiques, so it should feel very familiar to you. However, we are going to step it up in a couple of different ways, okay? First of all, I would recommend that when you come up here to share your work, that you do use your submission document as a guide, okay? I know probably most of you are very comfortable just coming up and just kind of off the cuff summarizing what's on there. This submission document is a little more extensive, okay? I just posted it. It is in Google Classroom for you. I would recommend, even if you are a very comfortable presenter, that you use that document, bring it with you, bring your device up, just so that you can kind of at least use it as a guide, so that you can kind of summarize, hit the main points of each of those questions. There are a few more questions than on a normal everyday critique, okay? So I would recommend that you do that. It does not mean that you are a less skilled presenter. It's just that there's more information on this one, okay? And we do really, we need to hear more of that information this time versus, I know in the past we've kind of glossed over stuff. And we can still summarize, that's fine. But like I said, there's more information. The comments then that you guys are making as viewers and as audience members do need to be more, okay? Not more quantity. I don't need you each to make 79 comments. That would never work logistically. But the comments that you make, instead of being worth 10 points, they're now worth 30 points. So that's a pretty big chunk of points. But that also means that you need to do more to get full credit on those points, okay? So remember, we have our formula for a strong critique: describe, analyze, suggest, explain, okay? In order to get a full 30-point comment, you really need to be thorough in your understanding of what is the effect of what you observed, okay? So if I observed that the composition on this screen right here is mostly concentrated up in the upper left-hand corner. Most of the visual activity is up there, which leaves a lot of negative space in the lower part and in the right side. Okay, did you hear that? I already used multiple vocabulary words just in my observation. I talked about composition. I talked about visual activity. You could also call that visual weight. That's kind of the same thing. I talked about negative space. Okay, that's already multiple vocabulary words. But because of what I observed, what effect does that have? That creates kind of a pull. It makes the viewer's eye kind of pull up in that upper left-hand direction. It gives the viewer's eye some space to kind of breathe in the rest of the negative space area. It definitely makes this part up here feel more dense, and then the rest of it feel more open. And so then that's kind of an asymmetrical balance situation, because it's not totally the same on all the different parts of the composition. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's going to be really important from a commenting perspective, okay? And in your submission document, you have the skills you're going to write, the skills that you outlined in your proposal, what you were going to show in your work. So there's going to be a little bit more kind of conversational feel to that dialogue because the presenter is going to kind of be explaining their approach, what skills they were focusing on. You will be able to comment on those, okay? We don't just want to repeat what they said, but we want to expand on it. But you can also then apply other concepts that you may have noticed, okay? So the slides document for the final project, where I had that slide that had a whole bunch of skills that you could pick from, that might also be very helpful to you in formulating your comments, because that will give you kind of a, just at least a starting point of things to kind of look for that you could potentially talk about. Does that make sense? Okay, you might have to be a little bit flexible, and this is where the idea of that final exam comes into play, because let's say you look at someone's work in the slides document ahead of time, you find some things that you can observe about it, you plan that, you answer them in your feedback document, you're ready to go, and then they come up here and they talk about maybe those same skills and techniques in their process, right? Well, you're not going to repeat the same thing they already said, so you might have to expand a little bit. Okay, so you have to kind of be a little bit flexible and be ready to show some other observations if they say the same thing that you have already kind of been thinking about. Which might happen, right? Because if that's their goal, if that's what they're trying to accomplish with their project, then that would make sense why that would stick out to you and why you would be able to observe that and why you might notice that. Okay? So that's not a bad thing. That's actually a really good thing. That means that you observed what they were intending to communicate, and that also means they did a good job in communicating what they intended to focus on. Okay? So that's a good thing. So be ready to roll with that flexibly. Okay? And then the last thing here is proactive preparation. Many of you, and this is a good thing, many of you can now comfortably, for the most part, kind of roll into critique day, and you might not be very nervous, and you might feel pretty confident, and you can kind of just be off the cuff about it and pretty informal about it, and you can do a pretty good job, right? However, for the final, I need you to put a little more preparation, more proactively, ahead of time. Okay, so I'm telling you now, we have 3 work days, and then we'll start critiques on Thursday so that you can be prepared. So that means that as soon as your project is done, get it in that submission document, get it in that slides document so that people can start to formulate their comments. Okay? You need to do that before 7:55 on Thursday morning because people need time to look at your work and to think about what they're going to mention and to offer for feedback. It's especially important with this one, okay? So you cannot procrastinate on that. So please be prepared, get that submitted in that slides document early, okay? If you are a less confident presenter, and even if you're a more confident presenter, I want you to practice your, I'm going to call it a presentation, but it doesn't have to be that formal. I want you to practice it at home, though, with volume. Do you hear how loud I'm talking right now? This is louder than if I was going to talk to somebody, like, conversationally one-on-one, right? I have to fill the room with my voice. Sometimes I have to compete with Frau and all the fun that they're having across the hall. You guys are going to be walking into the same participation or presentation situation, right? So everybody has to hear what you're saying, and including me way over there. So practice ahead of time, use volume, fill the room with your voice, right? If you think about if you were to stand here and there was nobody in the room, but one person was way over there by the clock, right? You would have to use a loud voice in order to be heard by them. So that's what I want you to think about. These people right here, they're kind of getting blown away by volume right now, and that's okay because they're used to it, they're very tolerant, they will be fine. Okay, but we want to make sure everybody can hear so that we can have that really good dialogue, we can have good comments. You are able to respond with your comments, not just to the presenter, but also to each other's comments. But we can't do that if we can't hear. Okay? So even if you are nervous, even if you are not totally confident, I want you to just be loud anyway, and we will support you, because then we can hear you better. Okay? So that's important. And then, we need to think ahead proactively about attendance priorities. So if you know you're going to be gone for an IB test, for a sport, for an appointment, for a whatever, okay, you need to plan ahead and make sure that you can present before you go. So that way we're not coming down to the wire and then all of a sudden there's 17 people who still have to present but half of them are not here, right? We're out of time to kind of make things up after the fact, okay? So we will be presenting Thursday, Friday, and then Monday, okay? Not all of you can wait till Monday. We need to kind of get in that slides document and then we need to kind of roll through. So what that means is you have to be ready to go, you have to be here. If you're not going to be here, you have to plan ahead for that and make sure that your presentation gets in so that it is accounted for, so that you can get that feedback. Because if somebody plans a comment for you and then you end up being absent, that throws their whole commenting game off, right? So we need to be prepared for that. So that might mean for some of you having backup comments in mind, but more importantly, we need to make sure that we are planning that we will be here in class, okay? So that is going to mean that during those critiques, we're not going to do bathroom passes, we're not going to do locker passes, we're all going to be here, we're going to be present for the people who are sharing, we're going to be participating with our feedback and our comments, and then we're going to plan accordingly. So if we have to miss a day, that's not going to impact our presentations and our ability to get stuff done, okay? It's just, I'm not trying to be mean, it's just that we have to use the time that we have. We don't have any time to go past that because we're at the end of the semester, which is a good thing and also a not so good thing, but it is what it is, okay? Does that make sense? I feel like I was going to go somewhere else with that. I don't remember what it was. Do you guys have questions? Oh, that's what it was. I looked at the schedule for those 3 days, so Thursday, Friday, Monday. None of those are a regular schedule. I think it's 2 mass schedules and an advisory schedule. I took the number of minutes that we're going to have to present and I divided it by the number of people in our class. And so in order to finish in that amount of time, which we have to, okay, that means that each of us, from including our presentation and the comments that follow, cannot exceed 5 minutes. Okay, I know 5 minutes sounds like a long time, unless I'm talking, in which case it sounds like a really long time. But the idea there is read through the things on your submission document, be assertive and thorough with your comments, and then I'm going to ask some of you who are a little more technologically savvy to kind of maybe keep a very subtle timer so you can kind of nudge people along when it's getting towards that 5 minute mark, and then we have to move on. Okay, question?
Wait, so we have five to present and take comments?
Presentation and comments needs to be 5 minutes or less.
Okay.
Okay? Now I don't want you to feel so rushed that you're like accomplishing everything in 2 minutes, right? We have 5 minutes. But I just mean that your presentation cannot take the whole 5 minutes because then we have to take comments and things like that. And I myself, Ms. Harpold, will try to keep my comments to a minimum to help us stick to that 5 minutes because I know I get chatty and I get excited. And it's going to happen because your work is really very awesome for your final project and I'm going to want to say nice things about it, but I will have to hold back as well. Any questions? In fact, seventh hour only has 4 minutes apiece because there's more of them. So, but 4 minutes is usually pretty common when I do final critiques, so I know it's very doable. We just have to be very aware. No questions? We all understand what's coming up this week? We're all going to be proactive and prepared and be ready. Speaking of that, if any of you would like to work with me this week on your presentation, if you are nervous, if you would feel more confident if you go over it with me first, I would be happy to do that. You just have to be proactive and let me know, and I can help you go through things in your document. You can ask me any questions. We can do kind of a run through, you and I, so that you have already done it once by the time you get up here. if there's something else that would help you prior to the presentation to help you feel prepared and feel ready and feel confident, bring that idea to me too. We can work on that this week. Today, tomorrow, Wednesday are the times for us to do that. Okay? Feel good? Ready to go? I can feel your confidence. Do you have a question on that?
Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second. Any other questions overall? Do not forget to take a progress photo. You will need at least 3 of them for your submission document.
Maddie.
And in the slides, I think I warned you about this already, but I'm gonna bring it around again. You will need to put 3 images in your slides. You'll need to put your final project, right, the final version. You'll need to put your original sketchbook inspiration. And then you'll need to put just something to give us an idea of what you researched and how that influenced what your final version ended up being. You'll talk about that too. And most of putting those images up here is to give you things to refer to as you speak. Because that tends to make things a little easier, not only for you to communicate, but also for us to understand. So be prepared for those. If you didn't save any of your research, it is not the end of the world. Just show us something that's similar. Okay? You feel good? All right.